So welcome back to another myth-busting episode. Today I'm going to be answering 17 questions about Minecraft 1.17. So our first myth simply asks, can you use the carved pumpkin with the Spyglass? Let's go ahead and plop this on our head, which of course will distort our vision when we're looking straight ahead. So you can see why this one's been asked. Look at that, when you use the Spyglass the effect goes away, so you can see with a pumpkin in your head, but it'll be massively zoomed in. This next question is a favourite of mine because it makes the Spyglass so much more useful. The question is if it's related to the FOV in the game. So we're going to use this elytra as a frame of reference. We can see how big it looks when we're in this FOV. We can go back in and change this, and as you will see, we are now way more zoomed in, right? This adds some functionality to the Spyglass. If you want to zoom in a little further, then you can adjust your FOV to do so. And that is a very handy thing to know. This next one is a little bit on the cruel side for myself, as some of you wanted to know if we could look at an Enderman through the Spyglass. So let's go and summon in one over there and say hello from a distance. And you might think the answer is no. I think the problem there was that we were just too far away for the Enderman to notice. Yeah, and now that I'm closer, this guy's going to come over here and teleport me and knock me into the void, right? Except it's not teleporting. So it seems I may have cheated my fate there. However, this Enderman won't be able to when we drop dripstone on its head. This question, though, comes from the Enderman's ability to dodge entities, and also to pick up blocks and destroy my experiments. But you can see there as we shot, the arrow hit the sand block and the Enderman teleported away. So let's bring in another Enderman, and then we're going to remove that block up there using a command block so that the dripstone falls. And you can see it did damage to the Enderman, and sometimes when it does damage to them, they also teleport away, but they can't actually avoid taking damage from it. And purely out of curiosity, I was just thinking, would the dripstone go through the lava, get set on fire, pass that on to the creeper, or maybe get destroyed? Well, the answer is actually neither of those things. So here's a fantastic question. Can the stalagmites or the pointed dripstone one-shot kill the wither boss by accumulating some damage as it falls down? The answer I thought initially was no, but it turned out to be a little bit more interesting. Up the top there, you can see that we've got some dripstone blocks and pointed dripstone below, and we can use the command blocks to remove those and then let the pointed dripstone fall down, which it's doing right here. Now, initially I was testing the wither floating above the ground, and it was taking no damage whatsoever, which led me to believe it was immune. But further testing then made me realise that the mob needs to be on the ground when it's struck, because the pointed dripstone applies the damage when it hits the ground just like that. So let's go ahead and bring in the wither, because we're going to see something interesting. Now this of course is a no AI wither, meaning it's not actually going to fly around, and trying to do this in survival would of course be a fair bit difficult. But you're going to see it takes damage. Look, it turned red, however it didn't actually take any damage on its boss bar, which leads me to believe that it gets processed, but it's actually immune to the damage of the pointed dripstone. This has then led me to wonder how much damage can this actually accumulate, because this creeper now has 100 hit points of health, and when the dripstone finally lands on it, it actually survives. So according to the wiki, every block that the pointed dripstone falls down by should increase the damage by 1 heart or 2 points, because in Numberthorn 1 heart is 2 points. So this would mean 50 blocks is the distance, but actually it's 169 from there down to here. So I believe that there might be a cap on the amount of damage that it can accumulate. And you know what? I think I've found it. This is relatively straightforward. Let's go ahead and drop these down. This one has a health of 40. This one over here has 41. So let's see who will survive. This one doesn't, and this one does. And just to verify that my thinking is correct here, I've gone and lowered the platform by 6 blocks. So if it can accumulate any more damage, this one over here that has 41 hit points of health would have then died. And another way in which mobs can take damage here is by falling onto the pointed dripstone. And I had a question that was wondering if chickens were immune, because they don't take full damage, right? They actually gently drift downwards with their wings flapping, and as you can see they can land on top of them safely. And there are indeed a few other mobs that are immune to full damage: the cat, the ocelot, And the parrots. None. Well, you know, that one's drifting off, but they don't take damage on the dripstone. And we got two more to test. The iron golem doesn't take damage for it, and neither will the snow golem. Let's get that one out of the way first. So yes, the way the damage is calculated seems to be linked to if they can take full damage or not. Also, as you're about to learn, this principle doesn't work in reverse. I'm sorry, Mr. Kitty Cat. It was done in the name of learning. So in a recent episode of Mythbusting about the new mobs added in this update, we kind of found some unusual behaviour that I didn't really have an answer for. And it might be that I have an answer for it now. You see, we're going to summon in some screaming goats, and we're also going to summon in Johnny the Vindicator. And this is how we did the test before, and what we unusually saw is that none of the goats are ever going to attack this one back. Now, I got a question in my comments, and I think it was the sort of question that was hinting at the answer. You see, over on this side, what we're going to do is bring in the goat and another Vindicator, but this one is going to have a movement speed of 0. It can actually be pushed about, but it won't itself move, and it won't take long, and we will see, there it is, one of the goats attacks the Vindicator. And so it seems that when mobs move, it invalidates the attack of a goat. So in order for them to be attacked, they need to be standing still. So one of the things Johnny the Vindicator does is actively target mobs, therefore it's forever moving around. So if we put in a mob that'll move but occasionally idle, it won't take long for one of the goats to attack this poor little chicken. And now the little guy is sadly kaput. If I go ahead and do the same thing on the other side, but I constantly move the pig around with the potato, this will actually help it stay alive as it's constantly moving. And as long as I am keeping it moving, none of these goats will ever attack. You also see this weird, like, group goat movement every now and then. They're kind of doing it right now. They all turn their heads at the same time. I'd love to know what code is behind that. But anyway, I'm now going to let the pig stand still, and then we'll see that it gets attacked. So next up, a goat-related question, and you're probably going to know what it is just by looking at this, right? How far can the goat ram another entity? So we've got a cow over here, it's got movement speed of 0, and then we've got the goat, which tends to do this every single time. It like pushes it out and then does that. And as you can see, it pushed it all the way to the end over here. So I know the distance to be about 12 blocks, and every time I do it, it pushes it over here. So let's do that one more time. So it gives it its little nudge, it turns around, and then it will use its ram attack. Like, I love the way it does that consistently. So now, let's go ahead and count the distance. I want to do this one more time. It's like it knows what we're trying to do. That, my friends, is basically 13 blocks. From that red one to where it lands, it's been pushed 13 blocks. For this next myth, we need to leave the myth-busting world. This one involves lightning strikes and lightning rods, and the question is quite a delightful one. Simply asking if it's going to be similar to reality, where lightning tends to strike at the highest point in a world, right? So if we had a lot of these lightning rods and we could see them get struck by lightning by having a lamp below, then we could do some testing and see if it actually strikes at the highest point. Thing is though, we would need like a massive grid of these things in the sky, which is exactly what I have created. And sadly I've learned that what we're seeing here is not correct, because I had a question asking if we were to block the lightning rods with a block on top of it, if the game would still strike it, and the answer to that was no. And that's when I realized that in our first test, the lightning rods above were blocking all of the ones below. So I had to go and redo the test and create a staggered layout, and then I discovered that actually the game strikes at the lowest lightning rods in the world every single time, at least for as long as I ran the test. And I did run it for a fair bit longer than the examples I showed you in this video, but there you go, very strange. They actually hit the lowest one in the world. Now I also had another question relating to the lightning rod, and this asked of the channeling enchantment on the trident, which can of course bring lightning strikes into this world. Let's go ahead and actually just bring a few creepers into this area, and then I'm going to strike it at this one, and you can see it landed exactly where we threw the trident, so it doesn't therefore redirect it somewhere else, like to the lightning rod itself. However, you can actually also activate the lightning rod with the trident. You'll see it glow white, And that's a sign that it is being activated. Let's go ahead and put some lamps under these. And that is, of course, because these things create redstone signals when they are successfully struck by lightning. It looks like it's spread over to that side as well. Fascinating. Okay, there we go. I've gotten rid of the weather because it looks absolutely terrible on YouTube videos, right? But there is your answer. You can use the channeling enchantment on the trident to direct lightning where you want to go, and you can also use it to activate a lightning rod and create a redstone signal. So I got quite a lot of small questions about powder snow, so we're going to lump all of these together, and the first one is asking if you can fly through powder snow. So let's go ahead, get a little bit of speed, and just bust on through and drift out the other side. So, the answer is technically yes. And let's say we approach from this angle, which is diagonal. You can see this time we basically got stuck inside of the powder snow. So same thing again. This time I have much more velocity, and I actually went straight through it. So lots of velocity again, except this time the powder snow is 3 deep. So what's happening here is the powder snow is slowing down the player's movement speed. So what happens if I, the player, am falling down through the powder snow and then I put my boots on? As you can see, it stops me in my tracks. Can we send projectiles through powder snow? The answer is yes. If I shoot the bow and the trident, we'll see them on the other side. With the snowball, got to get a little more creative and sort of throw it into the void so you can see it once we turn to the side and look down to where it's going. Same thing for the egg and the splash potion, and also the bottle of enchanting. And I want to make sure not to destroy anything with the fire charge. It destroys the powdered snow. Cool. Yeah, look at that. Okay, that one can hit the ground, but the one we did the first time just went off into the distance, and on its way through, it took out some of the powder snow. My mind is getting very curious now. This isn't one of your questions, but it just occurred to me. What about the boat? Boats will sink through this thing. But this time, things are different. I've got my leather boots on. Let's go ahead and do that. Oh, I'm going to have to break the block, aren't I? Yeah, I had a feeling this might happen. Look, it ignores the leather boots. Now, we've seen that various entities can go through the powder snow, but what about blocks? Okay, we've got ones that will fall when we place them, and you see that they actually land on the powder snow. That is the same for the sand and the same for the anvil. And the same with, all the concrete powders, gravel, and red sand. Earlier when recording, I got this advancement light as a rabbit, and according to my questions, some of you were curious as to what other mobs can actually walk on top of the powdered snow, just like the rabbit can. So to answer this question and more, we're going to look inside of the game's files. There is this list here called Powder Snow Walkable Mobs, and inside of that there is a list of the mobs that can walk on the powdered snow. It's the rabbit, the endermite, the silverfish, and the fox. Now also in here are 2 other lists related to the powder snow block. Freeze immune entities has stray, polar bear, snow golem, and wither, and these can't be frozen by this block. And we also have freeze hurts extra types, so the strider, the blaze, and the magma cube take extra damage when they're inside of the powder snow block. And that, my friends, is all of the powdered snow myth-busting related questions that we're doing today. It's been a long time since I've had to use this spot in a myth-busting world. This test was simply to see which blocks would work with the beacon. And you know what it's going to be? The block of copper, right? It doesn't work with the beacon. However, there are quite a few different types of copper, and I'm sure someone's going to comment if I don't go and test all of them. Okay, this was, didn't take me too long, a little bit painful to do, but yeah. Tested every single type, and none of them work. The next few questions are about the axolotl, and I'm guessing some of you probably know the answer to the first one. However, I found a caveat. The question is, can axolotls survive in rain? So put the axolotl in this little contained space so that we can look at it and grab its UID and then find out information about it. And this right here is what we're looking for, air 5228S. When I run this command again, you can see that it's now ticked down a little further. Now when that gets to 0, the axolotl is going to die because it's been away from water for too long. So now I have set the weather to rain, and this is going to affect the axolotl. And when I run that command again, you can see that air is now at 6,000, and it will stay there because the axolotl is constantly being hydrated by the rain. The caveat that I found to this is that the rain actually has to touch the axolotl. Now I'm sure some of you are going to make the argument that it doesn't actually rain in a desert, but right now the weather is set to rain, so that's like a part of the game, and the skies have changed, and out here in the desert it's not actually going to hydrate the axolotl. And so there is its air value, 4,800. Let's run it again. Now it's 4,700, so you can see it's slowly ticking down. Okay, and now its air value is 70, which means it's about to start taking damage. And there you go. Our next axolotl question is about breeding and if it will be able to retain the colour of its parents. So if you wanted a particular colour, you could get two of the same type. The answer to this is yes, and I can tell you a little bit more about breeding these in just a second, but to show you it on camera, if we breed two pink ones together, we get a pink baby. Two yellow axolotls and we get a yellow baby, and then we got a brown baby here and a blue baby there. Now when mixing the colours of the axolotl, I tried to find out if there was any bias, and after a lot of testing it really didn't seem like there was, but I wouldn't say I have concrete numbers on the matter. So let's take two different types here. One thing I can confirm is that there's no bias to which one you select to breed first. So I clicked on the yellow one first that time. It happens to be a yellow baby, but yeah, there's no bias for which one you click on first to get the colour from the axolotl. And this last question was rather specifically about using a name tag on an axolotl and then picking it up in a bucket, wondering if it would retain its name tag. As you can see, it does. But once you've actually picked up an axolotl in a bucket, it won't despawn and it will retain all information about itself. And as you can see from here in the axolotl's data, there is this tag right here called From Bucket. So yeah, if you're going to keep axolotls as pets, use the bucket and they won't despawn and you won't lose name tags and other things like that. Now, our very last question for today's myth-busting episode was asking if goats can attack Shulkers, and I think this has been asked for a very specific reason. According to the wiki, there's two mobs that goats don't attack. That is goats themselves, which we've never seen when conducting these tests, and the other one is the Shulker. And so the one mob that can't move is ironically the other one that they don't attack. And that is it for this episode of Myth Busting. If you enjoyed it, be sure to leave a like, and I'll see you soon in another one.